To a Nerds podcast. All things nerds, music, horror movies, pro wrestling, video games, anything nerds would like.
Once again, back with another Nerds podcast. Today I'm having a really awesome dude with me, Samuel Harris. How you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Now, my podcast is basically a podcast. It's for all things nerds. It's like basically pro wrestling, comic books, video games, everything. It's not necessarily any particular topic, but it's anything I would assume nerds would like to do. So
yeah,
I looked you up and I thought you were an interesting person I'd like to talk to you about. And I know you're an up and coming writer, and I like to discuss things, how you got into that profession, what made you want to do this, what influenced you. And I want to start from the beginning. Like, did you always want to become a writer?
Sure. So is that the first question? I can go
Yeah.
ahead and go with that one.
Yeah.
I've loved telling stories for a long time. So I've always wanted to become a writer. And I was an early reader, and even as a kid, was making stories up. My dad's an English teacher, so I guess in some ways, English and words kind of came more easily to me. That's the one area I excel in. There's a lot of things I'm not good at, but I'd say words and writing are things I'm good at. So, when I was little, even 4 or 5, I would be like writing down stories I made up. They weren't good stories back then. Or just when I saw a movie, I would want to go home and recreate the plot in story form or something like that. And then when I got older, I would start making up stories, and they were usually sci-fi and stuff, like time travel and superheroes and things like that. I've always been interested in that. So I've been writing unprofessionally for a while. I've been doing it just when I can and stuff for a while. I have old stories from maybe elementary, middle, high school that I worked on and didn't finish. And then now I'm hopefully writing things that are better, better quality, and trying to do something serious with those. So to answer that question, I guess, I kind of have always wanted to be a writer, at least somewhere in there.
Okay, that's cool. I like that. Now, as I'm gonna say as a kid first. As a kid, what kind of books did you read as a kid first that made you really enjoy to become a writer? I'm gonna start as a kid first, and then move into it.
Okay, good questions. Well, let's see. It kind of depends on what age. I will say, I don't know if you're going to get to this or if you knew this. I'm working on a superhero story now because you mentioned comic books. Mm-hmm. I've always been a big superhero fan.
Yeah.
My dad collected comic books when he was younger. He used to have a bunch of old ones from the 70s.
Okay.
And so even before I could read them, just as entertainment or whatever, he would just show me the covers and tell me who everyone was, and which characters were which and what was going on in the story, and that kind of made me fascinated with those characters. And then I watched things like Power Rangers and Batman too when I was young, so I've always loved superheroes and stuff like that. When I was little, books that I don't know if I consciously drew my influence from the books I was reading, or probably from a lot of places, but I don't know, second grade. I was in second grade when Captain Underpants came out.
Okay.
Which sounds pretty silly now, but I remember buying the
cool,
first one. I was
cool.
at the book fair and thinking it was a lot of fun. When I was when I was 8 or 9, The Phantom Menace came out, and there were some Star Wars chapter books for kids, or I guess they were really for young adults probably, but I was a little advanced. I started reading some of those. I still enjoy Star Wars books today. I have a whole shelf full of Star Wars books, and I'm sure I read a lot of things. Let's see. I know I read Goosebumps when I was young. Also probably around the same age, elementary school. So I guess by the time I was getting into chapter books and things like that. I'm sure. Oh, and there was some other ones that were My Teacher Was an Alien, or My Teacher Flunked the Planet, and things like that. Kids sci-fi books. I think the author's name was Bruce Coville. I read a lot of those. So even as an elementary school student, I was interested in sci-fi, fantasy, superhero chapter books, just just fun stories that couldn't happen in real life, but were fun ways to use your imagination.
Yeah, it's cool though. I like that though. I don't think honestly it doesn't really matter, and as long as it influences you in like in a positive way to make you want to pursue your goals and stuff. Cause
oh yeah. And I mean, even then, I was writing stories that were like, I mean, they were sometimes almost carbon copies of the ones I was reading. I mean, it wasn't necessarily original, but I would be inspired by this, and I'd be like, oh, I want to write something like that, or I want to make a story like that. So I would start doing those. I tried to make my own Star Wars story, like before Episode 1. Of course, it was silly because I was young then, but it's exercising creativity.
Yeah. Now, I'm assuming I'm gonna say as you get older, and I'm gonna say more as an adult, but you can say young adult too, like in your late teens.
Sure.
Well, what sort of books, and you can still say comic books, because to me comic books are graphic novels, and it still counts. It doesn't matter. But I'm just curious, was there any other books? It could be fantasy, reality, any books that even made you more realize that I can do this kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. I mean, comic books have been a thing for my whole life. I mean, I guess since my childhood. I mean, once I was able to read them, as a middle school, high school student, I was still collecting them, and I don't know, like Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Batman, stuff like that. I was reading a bunch of those. I guess in middle school, high school, I was also reading more fantasy, Lord of the Rings. Obviously, is a big one. I read that. I guess for the first time in 8th or 9th grade, maybe 8th grade. That's a classic, and I was reading things like Narnia and Redwall that were fantasy epics. And I mean, I don't really write fantasy in the same genre, or I dabbled in it for a while. I'm sure I wrote the beginnings of a fantasy story when I was in middle school. It's not the one I'm pursuing now, and I gravitated more towards sci-fi, which there's some overlap. I was reading I guess kind of the young adult fantasy series like that. I read some I guess middle school, high school action adventure books like Alex Rider. He's a secret agent who was a teenager, and Artemis Fowl is young adult fantasy fiction. I was reading those, and I mean. Yeah, again, I don't know which ones consciously made me think, I want to be a writer, because I already wanted to.
Yeah,
but I'm sure they all inspire me in some way. I mean, they captured my imagination and made me think, hey, this is fun stuff that I enjoy, and one day I want to do something like this, I guess.
Okay, that's cool. Now, as a writer, I don't have any experience really in writing, so
that's okay.
Now this question is more what is your process in writing? What is you? I mean, I'm not asking you if you wrote anything specifically. I'm just wondering the process. What do you go into when you're thinking about writing anything? Doesn't matter what it is.
Oh, okay. Well, it's different for each thing because I've done different kinds of writing. I mean, I was in school for a while, so I got pretty used to academic writing, and now I'm also in my day job. I'm a content writer for a nonprofit, so I do that, and then I work on my creative writing at night. So I mean, I kind of always when it comes to creative writing, I'm in a creative writing group and friends with some other people who do this, and we talk about there's kind of two different camps, and I'm sure there's the middle ground, but we talk about plotters versus people who don't plot, or we call them pantsers, meaning fly by the seat of your pants. So do you plan it out or not? And I'm a planner person. Not everyone is like that, but I just personally, I tend to be organized and structured, and I need to plan things out. I usually feel sometimes it varies how much I need to do the outline, but I usually feel like I need to at least have something planned before I just sit down and start writing. So for me, with the story I'm working on now, it has an ensemble cast, and it has 5 main characters of different superheroes I made up, and I mean the character ideas came to me first before I even knew what the plot was. I had an idea for 2 or 3 interesting characters who I thought were interesting, and I was like, let me maybe jot that down or think of a story that goes with them. and then I try to flesh out the character world, or I guess flesh out more characters from there, and then kind of build the plot around them. And so I don't know. I mean, the beginnings of the idea just come to me, and I mean, some of that's inspiration, and I can't really explain how that happens. It just
That's cool.
Just from thinking about it and knowing your genre well, and thinking of ideas. Sometimes a good one comes to you, but then I kind of think about it some more and flesh it out, and I wrote or would write or have written a rough outline for myself. I mean, of course, I can change and such over time, but it's like, for me, a broad, like, blueprint of plot points. Like, here's the end point I want them to get to. I mean, mine's a superhero story, so, like, I know, I mean, just speaking very broadly, I know that there's going to be a final battle. I know the good guys are going to win. Spoilers.
Yeah.
It's like I know I wanted to end this way with this kind of climactic scene. So it's like, so I have to suddenly ask myself, what do I need to do to get them there? Like, what happens between now and the end? And I kind of map broadly the major points. I mean, not like line by line, not piece of the dialogue usually, but just big plot points. Obviously it can change as it goes along. Sometimes people say it's good if it changes because it means you're not quite married to your outline.
Yeah.
And you still have some flexibility, but it's a rough outline to get me going. And then I kind of just sit down and start on it whenever I have time. I mean, that's a whole other issue. Finding the time.
Yeah.
Usually I have an idea in my head and or at least roughly on paper before I start writing the actual thing, and so then by the time I am sitting down to actually write it out, I at least have some idea of where I'm going.
Okay, I like that. That's pretty cool.
And after that, of course, there's editing and things like that. And I'm currently in the process of trying to publish. I haven't officially published yet, but I'm working on it.
That's all right, though. That's cool.
So we're trying to. So those are different categories too, but that's kind of how my writing process begins.
Okay, I like that though. I'm always fascinated by anyone's who's trying to make a niche in whatever kind of profession they do. So always kind of curious of the process of how they go about doing it, because I think writing is important. It's just any sort of outside of any kind of like art, because our writing is a form of art as well. So I think it's very important. And I find it I always commend people who are willing to go out there and do it. So I think it's pretty awesome you're doing that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad I'm able to. I've been trying to give more time to it in the past few years, because they say, like, if you have a dream you're trying to pursue, I mean, it won't happen unless you're working at it. And
exactly.
I mean, for a lot of us, that means putting in work outside of your day job, but it's something I would love to do and want to do, and so I'm working at it when I can. That's
cool. Now I'm curious, like, in the process, like, of your character development of your characters and whatnot. Now, like, in the last, I don't know how many years, they have done graphic novels and they have brought them to the screen, small screen and big screen, and a lot of the characters have become outside of one-dimensional, and some characters, they don't mind going dark or making them so human, like it's even beyond even the comic book realm. Do you look at your characters? How do you look at your characters as human beings? Do you look them as beyond? I'm not saying you do one dimensional, but how do you look at your characters? How do you look them as human beings?
Good question. Yeah, my story, it's called Fractured Heroes, and the title Fractured, I guess, is kind of because I wanted them to be real characters, or realistic human beings who aren't perfect. I mean, I will say, as far as superpowers go, my story isn't anything special. They have a guy with super strength and a guy with fire. I mean, it's regular superpowers or stuff we've seen before. But what I think makes mine unique is that the characters and their personalities are, I hope, realistic. I hope realistic. I've described it as a story about broken people trying to be heroes and save their city and work together. And so I guess I do. So most of my main characters, they do have at least one character flaw that they have to kind of overcome, and they're not just the perfect good guys. like classic Superman who just does the right thing all the time. I do have one character who's supposed to function like that. I call him the White Knight, and he was like the first superhero in this universe. And at the time of the present story, he's gone. Like he's retired. He's like an older superhero. And like the rest of them kind of look up to him as this legend, but he's not really a background character more than a main character. So my main characters, five or so, they each have some kind of flaw they have to overcome. So I have one, his name is Miracle, or his superhero name, and he's like, he's generally a good guy, like a good-natured, even a little awkward guy. But he has a past, and his big flaw is he doesn't see himself as a hero, or he struggles with guilt or underconfidence. So even while he's out there saving the day, he's kicking himself in the head. I mean, not literally, just like beating himself up and not able to forgive himself for his past mistakes. That's something he has to learn to overcome. I have one named Ruby, and she has a dark past too, where she's been hurt by others, and she doesn't trust easily, and she's bitter, and she has to learn to overcome that. I don't know. Do you want to hear about the rest?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I have one called Frostbird. He's interesting to me. So he has both fire and ice powers, like hot and cold. And the idea is, this is, I guess, thinly veiled symbolism, but his personality also goes hot and cold. Like he can go from being really chill to really angry. He has anger issues and self-control issues, and he's actually kind of given up on, or at the start of the story, he's given up on fighting crime. He's just using his powers for personal gain, pretty much.
Okay.
He thinks he always hurts people, but we'll see if he develops it more into a hero. I have one called Lady Light, who I guess you could say she is trying to be like more of the good, ideal, noble hero, but like she's young and she's idealistic and compassionate, but her compassion is a strength, but also sometimes a weakness. Like she almost doesn't recognize all the darkness that really is out there, and sometimes she's too quick to maybe overlook things, or I don't know. It's honestly she's been a complicated character to write because her personality is so different from mine. I've had to refine how I write her a few times, but that's supposed to be how she is, kind of compassionate almost to a fault. And then I have one called Night Terror, and he's kind of like, well, if I could compare it, he's like the dark vigilante or the brutal, like almost like a Batman or Punisher kind of guy who just is like he's just fueled by the mission, like the war against crime, and has almost no personal life outside of that. And so I wanted to give them all, a flaw, or at least one flaw, or a realistic backstory, or realistic personality. And so those are my five main ones in the first book. And of course, like the Avengers or like the Justice League or anything else, the question is, can they come together with these five very different personalities and very different approaches?
Yeah. Can
they come together and still team up and still work together, and cooperate in time to save the city, or will their personal baggage get in the way? Or will they find healing and companionship, that kind of thing? So I hope I answered your question, but yeah,
it did.
I do think, and I do want my characters to be realistic characters who show that even a broken person or a person with a past can still be a hero in some ways.
Yeah, that is cool. I like that, and that's like,
thank you.
Those things are important, and I think now that the graphic novels have a place, and they've always had a place, but now they have a place where TV shows like The Boys and Invincible have proven that you don't have to be, a cartoonish, like, nothing against, I like the old Superman, I like the old Batman, I still like them most comic books, but when you have a character that is woefully flawed to the point it's like, you're not well, but in reality, it's like tons of soldiers and people who live their life who have so many flaws, and they're fighting against whatever demons they have. How how awesome it would be if a person who has all the abilities of beyond human beings, but still has the personality and the insecurities of a person who, as a human, and he's constantly battling against that. And I think you writing like that is amazing. It's important. I think those stories are very important.
Yeah, and I've read and watched a lot of superhero stuff now. That's kind of my thing, and I see a place for both. Also, I mean, there's an inner child in me who still loves like '90s Spider-Man, where everything is pretty simple. I have a kid now. I mean, he's a baby. He can't let you appreciate it yet. But,
yeah.
And we're trying to introduce him to like some of the old cartoons. And when I watch those, I mean, like it feels simple. It feels like the childlike wonder of good guys, bad guys. Good guys always win. That's it. And there's a part of me that likes that. But I mean, I also appreciate like the Netflix Daredevil, which is a much more dark and complex show. I mean, obviously my kid isn't ready for that one yet.
Yeah.
But it's it's a very well written show with a very humanized and even borderline dark character. And so I think in our world today, I mean, the genre of what counts as superheroes has become so complex. I mean, it's a good time to it's a good time to be a nerd. It's a good time to be a superhero fan, because I mean, if every character isn't your favorite, there's one out there who can be, because they're all different.
Exactly.
Or there's enough development that they've developed in different directions that you have lighter characters, darker characters, characters who deal with this issue or that issue, or whatever. So I see a place for all of those in our world of stories today.
Okay, that's cool. Now this is part of this in the same vein, but it might be not exactly the same vein as what you do, but I'm just curious anyway. Would you ever consider writing like a television script, movie script, any kind of script that involves like animation or doing any sort of doesn't matter, any kind of script?
Yeah, I consider it. I'm not sure if I'm there yet. I mean, best case scenario, if my book gets published, I mean, maybe one day it could be turned into a show or movie. Who knows? That's way down the line. I mean, I don't want to count on that. I know that script writing is a different kind of writing, and I'm not sure if I'm the most qualified in that. In college, I took a class on writing for the stage. I mean that was like in theater, so I mean it was writing for like a physical play, which is still different from TV. And I wasn't as good at it because it's different kind of writing. I mean, if I practice it and worked at it, I'm sure I could learn. But hold on a moment, just a moment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. But like, I tend to be wordy. I like prose, just regular stories written out, because I can just go on and on and on. And I mean, I have to learn to be concise and cut my words down, which is a process that I'm working on now.
Okay.
But like in scripts, you can't do all that because you have to show more of the action, which is something I'm learning to do, but haven't gotten there yet. So to answer your question, I'd consider it. I'd be open to it if the opportunity presented itself.
Okay, that's cool.
It's not the genre I'm most used to or most comfortable with yet, but who knows what might happen in the future.
Yeah, that's cool though. Yeah, I'm just curious because like I know it's different. I know it's not the same thing because I know script writing is different than writing a novel, and even script writing for television, even script writing for like a Broadway play is probably the stage direction of whatever they do. But I was mainly just curious if you was ever, not necessarily like someone made you an offer, but I'm just curious if that actually, would you consider doing it, like, if it was a possibility? Yeah,
I'd consider it. I've also tried to write comic book scripts before because I'm a big comics fan. What was I going to say? I guess the greats are in comics. There's usually a writer and an artist, and I've dabbled in both. I mean, like when I was a kid, I would draw pictures too. But as I've gotten older, I found I'm really more excel at the writing. I still doodle for fun sometimes, but art isn't my main thing. So like I realized I just want to tell a story, which is why I went to our prose novels. And I could, I could also write that in the form of a script for a graphic novel or a comic book. I've dabbled in that before for another series I was working on at one point. I never went very far with it. And I mean, I'd have to find an artist who was willing to draw it and stuff like that. And that's a different, I guess, a different component of doing something like that when you're not, when you're just starting out and not like with a company yet. So I'm not sure what all that would look like, but I'd be open to it. I've at least had a thought before and maybe done a tiny bit here and there with it.
Okay, that's cool. Hey, first of all, I get like just two more questions to really ask you,
Sure.
but first I want to thank you for just taking your time because I always be grateful for anyone who takes the time out and let them ask them anything. I want to know that I'm really appreciative to do so. Now,
No, you're welcome. I'm trying to give to others because I've had some authors and such who have done this for me, so I'm glad I can help you out.
cool. I appreciate it. Now, this is like a fantasy question, and I normally do this. I used to do this just for indie wrestlers, but I started to move this over to music and other things because the question still holds true for any profession. But this is like a fantasy question I'd like to ask you, and this is more like, let's say hypothetically, you get to a point where you're in a position where people can offer you stuff for anything they want you to do. And this is more, let's say, a big executive producer offers you a deal where you are basically have creative control of any sort of vehicle of fantasy movie kind of like writing and producing. If you wanted to do it, they say look, I love your writing and I think it's phenomenal and I love your books. This person asks you what type, and I'm gonna say it's more in the range of, let's say you're in the MC universe. I'm gonna say that because that's more fun. In the MC, yeah, in the Marvel universe, in the Disney fantasy, they have billions of dollars. You can do whatever they want. If you had the creative control of what you do, what type of vehicle would you like to come to the screen? You can say it doesn't matter what it is. It could be something now, but I'm curious, what would you like to take ownership of and make it a reality?
Oh man, that's a tough question. And it's part of the reason it's tough is because Marvel has already done so much. I know. They've, like, even the minor characters are starting to get their own shows now.
Mm-hmm.
What I'd love to do, well, one thing I'd love to see done in some format would be a crossover between Marvel and Star Wars characters, which could happen now that Disney owns both.
Yeah.
I mean, it would work best in the comic book world, I think, where things are a little bit sillier and you don't have to pay for. Maybe sillier isn't the wrong word, but things are like more bizarre things can happen in comics, and you
can get away with it there.
And it would be non-canonical, but it would be really fun for someone who loves both of those franchises to see them come together. I've also had the idea, if I ever am fortunate enough to write for Marvel or Star Wars, because Marvel's doing the Star Wars comics now. I've had an idea for like basically a superhero within the Star Wars universe, like a kid finds out he has the Force and he doesn't understand what it is, so he starts fighting crime, and it's basically a superhero trope story within the Star Wars universe. That's something I'd love to write if I was given the chance, or even it could be a big screen thing or a Star Wars TV show. They're making those. I don't know. So off the top of my head, those are two answers. Two things that I'd love to see Marvel/Star Wars doing, and hasn't happened yet.
Okay, I think that's awesome. I like that. Thank you again, and hopefully I want to keep in touch regardless. And it just
Absolutely.
And like we can just talk about just basic writing in general, just what type of books you like to read, comic books, whatever. You can just talk about comic books, talk about movies. Doesn't matter.
I can talk about superheroes all day long. So
yeah, that's cool.
If you ever have it again, let me know.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to keep in touch about the how the writing is going, the process is going, and hopefully down the line, I'm keeping positive, and I hope you're staying positive too, that you will one day get it published one day, and I would love to read it.
if I can just give a little bit on that, just last week. So I mean, I have a full draft that I'm editing. I mean, I've been trying to build a social media audience and stuff.
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
haven't done much of it yet. But just last week, I spoke to a couple of literary agents about
Okay.
like agents who will pitch your stuff to a publisher.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them said she was interested in the idea. Just my word count was too much. Like I said, I tend to be wordy.
Mm-hmm.
I know I need to edit it down. So my goal now is to edit it so I can pitch to that agent again, and then we'll see what happens. So it's still a long ways off, but I am maybe one step closer to publishing right now. So we'll see.
That's cool. That's awesome. I can't wait. I cannot wait to read. I think it'll be amazing. You know.
Okay. Thanks for saying so.
All right. You're welcome. And hopefully, you know, I want to let you go, but I thank you again today for doing this, and hopefully down the line we'll stay in touch and we'll talk again.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me.
All right. All right.
Thanks.
Man. You have a good one. Bye.
You too. Bye.
That was Samuel N. Harris. He was a really awesome guest, and I really appreciate him nice enough to allowing me to interview him. And hopefully down the line, we'll talk again. I'm sure we will, you know. And I'm going to sign off on this, and I think I'm going to do a zombie sound effect.